That's why I gotta sing amen. Oh, how could I hide this joy inside of me? I can't hide. Amazing grace, oh Lord, I can't it be? Every day I ever want the world to see. I can't get over what you've done for me. You got me singing like amen, 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 amen. Oh yeah, amen. One more time now. Amen, amen, amen. Oh, amen. Sometimes sorrow is the door to peace. Sometimes heartache is the gift I need. You're faithful, faithful in all things. In every high, in every low, on mountain tops, down broken roads, you're still my rock, my hope remains. I rest in the arms of Jesus, come what may. Come what may. There is deep joy that you give to me. What hurt needs the healing is a holy thing. I see goodness, your goodness in all things. Yeah. In every high, in every low, on mountain tops, down broken roads, you're still my.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. We have a packed house today. If you don't know, Taylor Swift has like a girl squad, and I am convinced that our speaker today has a girl squad that is way better than Taylor Swift's girl squad. So if you're part of the girl squad for Lisa, would you just make some noise? All right, if you're part, yeah, excellent, excellent. I'm thrilled to introduce Lisa to you in just a moment, but for those of you who are new, maybe this is your first Lunch and Learn, my name's Brian. I'm one of the pastors here at Wooddale, and I get to lead a ministry here called the Family Resource Initiative. And every Thursday at noon, we have these Lunch and Learn events, and they're beautiful, and you're going to see that today. We have been blessed with incredible speakers who come in and week out and talk about topics that are really important. And I think we're going to have one of the best presentations that you've ever heard on grief today. I've been able to kind of get a preview of what Lisa is sharing today, and there's such practical wisdom. There are nuggets. So on your table, there's a basket in the back of the table. If you didn't bring something to take notes on, there's some paper that you are welcome to take and write notes on. You're going to want to do that today. A couple of just housekeeping items. So every week we have a Q&A time, and every week I have people who say, I don't need the mic, I just want to make a comment. I know you don't need the mic, but we're recording these, and so the people who are listening online can't hear what your question is unless we bring the mic to you. And so if you just be patient with us, let us put a mic in your face, and when you get the mic in your face, put it close to your mouth. Because here's what's happening. We are getting so many people who are rewatching these episodes, who are sharing them on social media, who are telling family members across the country, you've got to hear this presentation. And so if you have not yet been made aware of it, the Family Resource Initiative has a YouTube page. In fact, if you go to it on any Wednesday or Thursday at noon and you're at the office and can't be here, we actually live stream these. We don't publicly announce that a whole lot, but these are being live streamed as we speak, and they are immediately saved to our YouTube channel the minute it ends. So at 1:05 today, this presentation will be there, and so if you subscribe to the Family Resource page on YouTube, you'll get weekly notifications that'll tell you when new video content is there. And I bring that up today too because we are weeks away from some of our first additional content being put on that page that have just nothing to do with the Lunch and Learns. And those will be podcasts and interviews and just lessons on demand on a variety of issues that we deal with in this office. So from parenting issues to financial questions to stories of hope, like the story you're going to hear from Lisa today. On your tables is also just a general brochure about the Family Resource Initiative. We'd love for you to take those. We would love for you to share those because we believe that what is happening in here is something that makes a difference in the community. And you've got people in your life that need what we offer. In the past week, our office has done about 10 counselor referrals. We've had a couple of suicidal folks we've talked to. We deal with a lot of marriage issues and relationship issues, and it's a work that we've been called to in there, and it's a work that we feel is important. And so if you've got people in your life that are going through struggles and they need help and they don't know where to turn, we want to be a resource for that. And so that's what that brochure is about on your table. And then there's a Lunch and Learn brochure that will take you through the month of December. We are 4 speakers away from filling up through May. And so we've got some great content coming up in the spring that hasn't been announced yet, but there are great, great things happening. If you didn't sign in today when you came in, if you kind of wave to me as I'm walking out on the way there, we have a giveaway that we're going to do today after Lisa's presentation. It's a book for 31 Days of Hope and Healing for Grief and Loss, written by a good friend of the ministry here, and we'd love to give that to somebody today, and that'll be as a giveaway after our speaker is done. So just kind of catch me, and I'll get your name. Our speaker today is no stranger to Wooddale Church. Lisa Holt is part of really I call them the incredible Holt family. Lisa and her husband Tim have been through some unimaginable loss in their life. Lisa was a teenager who knew what it was like to lose a parent, and a parent who knew what it was like to lose a teenager. And for so many families, that completely destroys them. Husbands and wives separate at a rate of over 80% in situations like that. And Lisa and Tim have been just a shining example of leaning into faith, leaning into each other, leaning into their church community as they've walked through some unimaginable grief. And some of you are here today and you've experienced similar grief. I know we have folks here who Lisa's story is your story. We have folks here who are dealing with the recent loss of a spouse or a loved one or a parent. We have people who've lost a best friend, and maybe you're just in that period right now. It's overwhelming just to be in this room. And so I want to just say, I'm proud of you for being here. If you're in that season of grief, I believe this is going to be a time of blessing for you. But many of you are here not because you've experienced that grief, but because somebody you love has experienced incredible grief. And we all want to be just experts at how do you come along someone where they're going through a hard time. And sometimes we feel like it's just, I'm flubbing up everything, and how do I help my friend here? And this presentation, again, is going to be a blessing to you as well. How do you come along someone in that time of grief? So we don't always begin with prayer at our Lunch and Learn events, but I'm going to do that because of the gravity of our topic today. And then I want you to welcome Lisa. Father God, I thank you so much for Lisa Holt. I thank you for her courage. I thank you for her willingness to be vulnerable with us today, to share what it is like to go through grief that many of us can't even begin to imagine. For all of us, Lord, it's our worst nightmare to think about losing a child. And God, I thank you for the fact that you love us right where we're at. You love us in the good times and the bad times. And as Lisa shares with us today, would you just give her strength? Would you speak to us in a way that would be an encouragement to us, for those of us who are looking for practical ways to come alongside those who are grieving in our life? May this be just an encouraging time and a time where we'll have some practical ways to come alongside of others. God, I thank you for each person here. And I know we're all over the place in our own stories, and I thank you for the courage of those who came here today, feeling like they themselves are really vulnerable, and may this be a time for them of your healing and your presence and your grace. In Jesus' name, amen. Lisa, come on up.
You have to get this out first. Okay, hello. Thank you for coming. Because as Brian said, you may be here because you're grieving a loss. And if that's the case, I'm very sorry. Or you may be here because you know someone grieving a loss and you're not sure what to do. And if that's why you're here, Thank you for caring enough to be here and to hear some words on this subject. Brian kind of gave you my entire LinkedIn resume. My entire resume is that I was a teenager who lost a parent, and I grew up to be a parent who lost a teenager. I do not have a psychology degree. I am not a counselor. I'm just a mom. I don't have credentials, but I have life. And so will you please today recognize that what I tell you is coming from my life, from my experience, from some very good counseling that I got, but it is not coming with a degree after my name because my degree is in advertising, which is not terribly helpful. Just want to say. So now that I've told you a little bit about myself, I want to show you, okay, here we go. It's not moving. There we go. That's our name, Thoughtful Ways to Show Love to a Griever. I want to show you a picture of my kids because this is our very last Christmas when we had 4 children. And the reason I want to show this to you is because context is very important. When we talk about something that happened, in my case, 14 years ago, you would want to know and see what did my kids look like at this age. So there's Ryan. He's just about to have his 16th birthday. Next to him, holding the little dog that is, thank God, not with us any longer, is our daughter Megan. And Megan is now, in this picture, she's 14, but she is now the mother of 2 babies and a third coming in December because life goes on. Next to Megan is Ashley. Ashley is now 25 years old and engaged to be married in June. And on the very end, little tiny Caroline, who's only 9 years old there, or 8, actually, she's 8 in that picture. She is now 23 and working really, really hard to get her career started. And Ryan, if he were here today, would have celebrated his 30th birthday in January. And so I mention that to you because I think when you talk about families and you talk about things that happened a while ago, context helps. So that's why I wanted to show you that picture. And now I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the idea of what grief really is. Because, you know, we use this word a lot. We say things like, I'm grieving the loss of the pumpkin spice latte off of the Starbucks menu. Because I know for some of you, I have gotten those text messages. I know what it's like when you lose those things. It's painful, but I want to tell you something. The colloquial use of grief is not really grief. Grief is deep sorrow according to the Oxford Dictionary, and it is caused by someone's death. But I want to say this to you, it's really way more than that. That definition I don't think is very tender. This is a physical and very emotional response that comes when a deeply loved person dies. And listen, you will never grieve someone you didn't love. You will never grieve someone you didn't love. Now, you may think, I just saw this news story and it was so painful. That's empathy. You might say, I heard this story and it broke my heart. But that's not grief. Because you are never going to grieve someone that wasn't tender to your heart. So I want you to know that what we are talking about is someone so tender to you. Now, something you might not know is how long a grief cycle lasts. You know, when people have like a boot on their leg or a cast on their arm, you immediately know something's wrong, and you might even say to them, uh-oh, looks like skiing didn't agree with you. Or, oh, how did your shoulder surgery go? And you can watch their progress just by seeing those things come off of their body. The boot goes away, the cast goes away, the shoulder strap goes away, and you begin to see a progression. But you don't have those kind of supports when someone is grieving because you may not even know that someone is grieving. So my grief counselor, who I really give a lot of credit to, she was a very, very helpful friend in this time, she said that it is 2 to 3 years for a primary loss. And when she describes a primary loss, she means a parent, a spouse, a sibling, or your very, very closest friend, someone that is very much in your orbit. That it would take you 2 to 3 years to just get to the place where you can talk about it, where you have it woven into your life a little bit, and where your days are starting to feel like this is what it is, and this is what it's going to be. But may I tell you that if you have lost a child, that grief cycle starts at 3 years and goes to 5. And I'm going to say this, 3 to 5 years, in my opinion, is kind of for people that are very prodigious. Like, I think if you get it done in 3 to 5 years, you should get some sort of an award ceremony. Because I don't know any, and there's a few of you in the room that I know pretty well that have had loss of child. And 3 to 5 years, honestly, I think that's hopeful. I think that's hopeful. So I want to say this to you because, again, if you're standing alongside someone, they aren't going to be done with this as quickly as you think. Now, we talked about you can't see grief, but what are some of the symptoms? Because people have them. One of them is a lot of trouble with sleeping. Some people couldn't sleep at all, like me, and other people find themselves sleeping a lot because that's all they have energy for. You will see a lot of changes in people's appetites. It is not unusual for a griever to put on a lot of weight or lose a lot of weight, or to do both, or to just keep up and down with their weight. You will often hear them describe that they have body aches, headaches, poor health, a weakened immune system, increased inflammation, that's like joint pain and things like that, brain fog, lots of brain fog, fear, anxiety, depression, dehydration, tightness in your chest, or a hollow stomach. Doesn't that sound delightful? But I got to tell you something. All of these things are very real. And I can tell you myself, I experienced a number of them. My husband lost 18 pounds the first 2 weeks after our son died. He went to the funeral with clothes hanging on him, and by the end of the month, he had lost 25 pounds. In a month. That's a pound a day. I know men do these things way better than we women do. No woman loses 25 pounds in a month, unfortunately. But that is extraordinary when you are not trying. And we were trying to eat 25 pounds. I tell you this because this is what your body does. It tries so much to rescue you. And it will do a lot of strange things to get there. So now that we know this, now that we know that these people have a lot of physical pain along with their mental anguish, we need to know that they're very fragile people. That's what I would use as a word for you. Grievers are fragile and they're tender, and we have to come alongside them with tenderness and gentleness. So how do we approach a griever? Here's the first thing. I really want you to focus on this. You come to validate and bear witness to the loss. Now you might say to yourself, that sounds crazy. What do you mean, validate and bear witness to the loss? Well, if the loss was quick, the family hasn't even begun to believe it. They are still in absolute disbelief. And what they really want you to do is come up and tell them that this is a very bad dream and that they're going to wake up now and this is going to be over. But it isn't a bad dream. It's a living nightmare. And so your coming and you're standing alongside them helps them know that this is true. This is a huge job that you have standing alongside someone. You also show up to honor the decedent. Many times you are coming, you may not know the family, you may just know the person who was lost. And so your coming is to represent them and to honor them. You also want to show respect and support for the family that is left behind. You may not know them, but your being there, your presence is support, and it's kind. And then you want to offer hugs, words of comfort, and tenderness. And don't worry, we're going to get to the words. I know that's why most of you came. I'm not unaware of the fact that you want to hear me tell you the things that were the worst. Oh, I will. Because I don't want you to share them with anybody else. So you know I will do that. So let's talk about it. This is the part everybody wants to know, where words are many. When people have things to say that are awful, oh, I have a list. We don't have enough time. I pick my favorites. So friends and family are going to say things that are well-intentioned, but they come off as very hurtful and insensitive. Not just people you don't know. I hate to say it, some of the worst things come from people you do know because they are sometimes a tad casual. Grievers need permission to grieve, not instructed to feel better and get over it. So the thing you don't ever want to say to someone is, you're going to just be just fine. No, they're not. That's not even true. So we want to tell them not to turn that frown upside down because grieving means grief. Grieving means sadness. Grieving means hurt. Grieving means pain. So don't come and think that your job is to provide levity. I promise it won't go well. And words fail where the purpose is to add levity instead of comfort or sensitivity, or when the comforters try to make it about themselves and not the grievers. Oh, you see where I'm going to go now? It's going to get good. Okay, here's the other thing. We do not want to compare our losses because that is not helpful. I had people say things to me like this. I know someone who had twins that were lost. What am I supposed to say to that? I'm so sorry. That's horrible. That doesn't make me feel any better. We don't compare our losses. We just live in trying to help each person with theirs. And can I tell you this one thing? Because I think this is so important. Oh, wait, I missed one. It didn't come up. Hang on. Oh, yeah, here it is. A right attitude will help you avoid a platitude. In other words, if you come in with an attitude, I'm going to be tender, I'm going to be gentle, I'm going to care, and I'm not going to make this about me or anybody I know, I'm going to make this about you, you're going to do just fine. It's when you don't do that that things fall off, that wheels fall off the bus. Okay, here we go, folks. Buckle up. Here we go. We're going to do this now. Here we go. I'm going to bring them up. Okay, everything will be just fine. No, it won't. Somebody's died, and everything has changed. I have to tell you, that is just so insensitive. Why would you ever say that? Why wouldn't you say, I'm going to walk this out with you. I'm going to be here with you. And I love this one. Well, if it were me, well, good news, it's not you. I had a lot of people say, if this were me, what I would do is, well, it's not you, and I'm not sure I care right now, thankyou.com. They're in a better place. Well, you know what? Heaven is a better place, and it's wonderful for believers that they get their graduation. But can I tell you something, that even with that joy in your heart, the griever wants them here. I used to say all the time to God, hey, Lord, would you consider, I don't know, this is just me just thinking it out, how about we do visiting hours? Just visiting hours. I'm thinking maybe 2 to 4, I don't know. I used to say that to him all the time. Could we just have visiting hours in heaven? Because I would just like to go for just a little time, just talk to Ryan for a few minutes, come back. And my dad, too. But he doesn't give us that. So this idea that they're in a better place, well, guess what? I'm not. And so those things you mean them well, but they don't always sound the way you mean them. Okay, here's the one you've all heard. You already know this one's bad. I know how you feel. Well, I'm going to say this. Nobody's stories are identical, and we do not have homogenized feelings. We're individual people. And even my sweet grieving moms that are here today who've lost children, we haven't walked this out identically because our stories are different. Our children were different ages, the experience and the things that surrounded it were different. So we don't have identical feelings, but we do have a lot of things similar. We can relate, but it isn't identical. And this isn't about you anyway, remember? Okay, this is the one, if you're going to write anything down today, write this down. 2 words you never say to a griever, at least. You know, when I worked in advertising, there were 5 words you could not say on television. We say them now, but we didn't back then. These are the 2 words you never say to a griever from the FCC and Lisa Holt. At least. There will not be a single positive thing that comes out of your mouth after you say this. At least she's not suffering anymore. Well, everybody else is. And the worst one? Oh, this is the worst. And I'm going to tell this to you by telling you what you would never do so that you can understand how it hurt when some, and many people said this to us. Here's what you would never do. You would never be on the crosstown driving along and seeing someone who had blown their tire. You would never get off the road, out of your car, and walk up to them and say this, hey, I see that you just blew your tire. Well, aren't you glad your other 3 tires are still fully inflated? You would never say that. But can I tell you how many people said this to us over and over? They said, you have 3 beautiful daughters. You must be so thankful. Of course we're thankful. We just lost our son. Wake up. It's okay to talk about what you've lost. We are not required to live every single minute on what we still have when we're trying to grieve. Please don't say that to someone. Please don't tell them how fabulous it is that they still have 2 kids or a fabulous best friend. I know you lost this girlfriend, but that other one's really great. You still got her. No, say to them, this is so terrible. I'm so sorry. This is so hard. She was so special. Here's another one. Time heals all wounds. No, it doesn't. It just crosses days off the calendar. It really doesn't. It's not helpful, and it's not even true. And here's the other one. Sorry about this. I'm going to throw in the misplaced Bible verses. People kind of like to beat you up sometimes with, all things work together for good, or we don't grieve as those who have no hope. No, but we grieve. Boy, do we serve a God that's tender to grievers. We do. We serve a God who's really tender to grievers. One of my favorite things that's true about that is that Isaiah said prophetically over Jesus, he will be a man of sorrows, well acquainted with grief. Boy, was I glad to know that. Well acquainted with grief. And you know, he lost his really good friend Lazarus. You might have heard this story. And his sisters were there just sobbing, and Jesus cried with them. And you know what the interesting thing is? In about 3 minutes, Jesus was going to walk over and say, hey, Lazarus, come on out. And he knew he was going to do that, but interestingly, he just was so moved by their tears that he didn't let the miracle interrupt the moment. He stood and cried with them, and that has meant so many things to me, because I needed to know in walking this out that those were some things that I could depend on. So now that we've talked about all the things you shouldn't say, what are some things? We just got that one. Oh, I guess this got repeated. Pardon me. Let's just go through this. Here you go. What do you say to a griever? Okay, here we go. I'm sorry for your loss. I know that's not really like fabulous. You want something much more highbrow, but I got to tell you something. This one means the most. But mean it when you say it, if you're sorry, that you're sorry. Here's another one. I enjoyed your grandmother very much. She always made me feel like part of your family. You see, if you know the person who died and you can share a positive memory, a word of encouragement, or something that's just joyful, that's the one time that levity at a funeral is appropriate, when you're speaking of them as if they were still here. And something like, whenever I think of Brett, I will think of his contagious laugh. That makes the family so thankful, because you've already told them what Brett can leave behind that will be meaningful to you, and that means a lot for them. And this other one, your mom made the best beef stroganoff. She was such a talented cook and hostess. A compliment is always welcome about the person that they have lost, because that tells them you saw good. And another one, if you don't know them, is you could say, I'm so sorry I never met your Uncle Wayne. Would you tell me about him? When my husband went back to work a couple weeks actually after Ryan died, the very first person he ran into at work came running up to him and said, hey, I heard your son died. What happened? And my husband is a man who is very careful with his words, unlike me. And he said, did you know Ryan? Because I would love to tell you about how he lived first. And he stepped back. And I have always marked that story in my heart, because it has helped me to remember that that is something that I can say, not how did they die, but how did they live. So you can own that. Take that on. If you need a word, tell me about them. I don't know them. And here's another one. And by the way, it says, what's your favorite memory of Joanne? Well, my mother's good friend Joanne died this month. Joanne celebrated her 89th birthday at the beginning of September and died 3 days later. A week from today, I'm flying to Michigan, and we are going to talk about our favorite memories of Joanne. We have a lot of them. Joanne was my mom's friend for 50 years at church. And they raised their kids together. They were both widowed, and they both got remarried. And so that's going to be a discussion with Mom next week. What are our favorite memories of Joanne? And you can share memories with people that you know, too. And another thing you can say is you were just a wonderful and patient caregiver to your mother or your father or your loved one. Sometimes telling the griever what they did really well, leading up to this difficult point, that's comforting to them if they've been through a very long season. Now, I get asked all the time a question like this: how do you help grieving families? Like, what do you really do? So we will talk about a few things: short-term support and long-term support. So the short-term ideas are encourage them with cards and text. I have to tell you something. Cell phones get a lot of bad rap, but I actually think they're pretty good, and that they have a lot of things that are helpful. And one of them is being able to text somebody in the morning and say, I'm thinking of you today, I'm praying for you, how are you doing? You can provide meals. I know a lot of you don't want to do that, that's okay, but if you do, they don't have to be hot. Frozen meals are really great. People can put them in their freezer and use them on a bad day. One rule: everything must be disposable. Please don't ask them to return grandma's antique, soup tureen. That's just burdensome for them. So please go to Costco and get yourself some nice little foil things and make everything disposable. Another thing you can do if you don't want to cook and that's not your thing, send them an Uber Eats gift card, or send them a gift card to a restaurant or someplace they can get some takeout that their family can have a night off with something that they can look forward to, especially families with kids. This is a really good one because the kids all have a favorite place. This one was huge. Somebody at this church did this for us, and I have mentioned this 1,000 times. Thank you, Stephanie, for this. Drop off paper products, Kleenex, paperware, plastic utensils, paper towels, and toilet paper. You don't have to do all of those, but all of those things go out of cycle very quickly in your home because people keep coming in and using your bathroom when they visit, and they cry and they use all the tissue that's on your tables, and they go through a lot of napkins, and there's paper plates. All that stuff is very helpful. And if you're not someone who is gifted to cook, this is a way you can really help them. And the other thing you can do is leave a flat of water bottles. Wow, is that helpful? Remember I mentioned dehydration is a problem. Flat of water bottles, hugely helpful. And another thing is you can help them with household tasks. If you love to do laundry, which is actually one of my spiritual gifts, I'm really good at that. I love to do laundry. I'll do your laundry any day, and I'll fold it, and I'll sing while I do it. But I hate doing lawn care. I will never mow your lawn. I don't mow mine. But if you like that, a job, take that job on for them. But here's what you do. You say, I would love to come and help you catch up with your laundry. Would Wednesday work? Because when you say, text me if you need me, you're not going to hear from them. Remember? Brain fog. Brain fog. They don't remember. They don't remember who said that to them. They don't remember who said they would bring lasagna. They don't remember who said, I love to mow your lawn. I'll send my teenage son or whoever to come do it. So would you please do that for them? Would you tell them you're coming, tell them when? Or say, we'll come and shovel your driveway this week. If it's Minnesota, you might have to do that. Those are the kind of things that are really helpful. And here's one that I loved. People would text me and say, I'm going to Target, what do you need? Now, one day, a friend texted me, it was the day before the funeral, and she goes, I'm on my way to Nordstrom, Target, CVS, and Kohl's. Clearly are on the list. Where? Like, what do you need? And I texted back and said, I don't have any waterproof mascara, just anything. Well, she went to Nordstrom, because that's who she is. She came back with the little Nords. She bought the most expensive waterproof mascara. I didn't know you could spend that much on it. But I loved it. It was great. But my point is, so helpful. So helpful. Just something you wouldn't think of. Well, unless you were me, you would think of the waterproof mascara. But your friends can say, I'm on my way to Target. I'm on my way to Nordstrom. I'm going to Kohl's today. What do you need? What do your kids need? My kids did not have clothes for a visitation because we weren't planning a visitation. Tim's sister, my sister-in-law, showed up and she goes, what am I doing? She lives in Kansas, by the way, does not know how to get to Von Mar. So the girl said, we can get you to Von Mar. And I said, take them to Von Mar. Please get some clothes for them that look really nice because they're going to be seeing about 800 people tomorrow. And she said, I'm on it. She got them all dressed. They looked really cute. And that was her gift. What a beautiful gift. So practical, so helpful, so very, very needed. I was really grateful for that. Okay, now we got long-term support ideas. Those were our short-term ones. Now we have long-term support ideas. Here is my first one. Take in your phone, again, smartphones, put the lost date and the birth date of the person that has died in your phone and hit the repeat annual button. If you don't know how to do this, see me after. I'm really good at this. It's one of the things I can do on an iPhone. But I have all of my friends who've lost their children. They know this. I have their dates, their birth dates and lost dates, and a lot of them have my son's birth date and lost date, and then we can text. I know what today is. I know this is a hard day. Thinking of you, little hearts, love bugs, just emojis, hearts, whatever. You can also send a card or a text on a milestone date. Here's the 2 dates every grieving parent hates: Mother's Day and Father's Day. Can I just say this? They were developed by the evil people of Hallmark. Those people in Kansas City, right near where you used to live, Hallmark headquarters, they are evil. They developed this holiday because very few people are capable of celebrating it kindly every year. In every church across America, every Mother's Day, someone's lost a baby, someone had a miscarriage, someone didn't get pregnant, someone's child died, someone's mother's died, or someone's mother is 10 minutes from the grave. And all those people have to come to church and pretend they're happy, but they're not. And then we repeat the cycle for Father's Day. And for me personally, by the time I was in high school and had lost my dad, I hated Father's Day. It to me was like this mean thing. And so I will just tell you personally, I make a decision every year on Mother's Day and Father's Day if I'm showing up at Wooddale. If you don't see me on Mother's Day, I might be home. I might just be like Netflixing and chilling. Because I give myself permission to decide what works for me. Some years I come, and some years I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to do that this year. And I don't have to make a decision until that morning. And you can make those decisions if you're grievers, or if you have a grieving friend, you can say, are you coming to church today? If you're not, I'm going to come over and bring you a pumpkin spice latte Starbucks before they grieve it off the menu. You can do something like that. They would love it. Okay, you can also ask or comment about the griever's loss. I know what your mom would have loved these hydrangeas, and I can only imagine your uncle's reaction to the Vikings game. Those are some more things. I don't think that was supposed to be on that one. That's okay. Okay. I don't know why that got there. Okay. The other thing I get asked all the time is, can you give me some ideas of things to buy people, like a gift kind of thing? I get asked this a lot. So here's my favorite. One of them, and this is more for the women, but we do love jewelry. A little jewelry piece with their initials or their birthstone on it is kind of a fun thing. And it's something they can wear that has an initial for their loved one or has a birthstone on it. That's really meaningful, and that's something that a lot of people would love. A framed photo with the loved one. I can tell you that a woman I did not know had a son in my son's class. She happened to be a really good photographer, and she had taken all kinds of pictures of her son and my son at a trek meet. And she had some great shots, and she framed them, and then she called me and said, hey, I want to take you to lunch. I know you've never met me, but I have something really special for you, which was a little nerve-wracking. I didn't know her. I thought, I hope this is good. Anyway, I had a wonderful lunch. She was adorable. And then I opened this bag, and here were these darling pictures of Ryan in a track meet, all framed. I mean, what a gift. How thoughtful. I loved it, so I will share that with you. A journal. I got a journal, and that was a really good gift, and I bought 5 more afterwards because I ran out of it, and I had to buy replacements, so I think I'm on like 5 or 6 now. What a great exercise it was to write things down. A cozy blanket or a wrap, obviously not in July, but in a warm season, you just need to be cozy. Grief feels very chilling, and it feels broken, and a wrap or a cozy blanket would be really nice. Here's a fun idea for the guys, too. Memorabilia representing the loved one, their school, their team, something, the Vikings, something that means something to them. Like, my son, we lived in Detroit when he was born, so he was a big Detroit Lions fan. And by the way, if you're not paying attention, we did beat the Kansas City Chiefs last week, just letting you know. But anyway, my son had a really cool Lions sweatshirt, and it meant everything to us. And we gifted one of his friends with that sweatshirt. And I can tell you, every time I saw Bryce for the next 3 years, he had the Lions sweatshirt on. And he wore it to school, and he made all the kids, laugh. He's like, I'm wearing Ryan's sweatshirt. Go Lions. And they're all looking at me, But it was fun. It was a really fun thing to give him, and it was a really fun way for him to remember Ryan. So I share that with you because you might think of something along those lines. And another one kind of similar to jewelry, but a locket or a charm with the loved one's picture on it, especially women if they have those little like Pandora bracelets or some of the charm bracelets. That's a great way for them to add something in that's really, really meaningful for them. And I want to also share a scripture with you that I just love. It says, the Lord's close to the brokenhearted, and he saves those who are crushed in spirit. Boy, oh boy, is that ever true of grievers. We are crushed in spirit and broken. And we serve a God who is absolutely 100% capable to save and help us, especially in difficult times of trouble. Pastor Brian says that he's going to come up and give away a little book, and then I'm going to come back up here and answer your questions. This will give you a minute to make note of what you want to ask me, and I'm all ears.
It will.
Pastor
it will.
Brian.
Thank you. You can hold on to that one. Okay. Unbelievable. Thank you, Lisa. So practical. Hey, Pastor Dan, I'm going to ask you to grab one of those Wooddale blankets because that was such a practical thing. So we're going to give out 2 prizes today because sometimes you just need a blanket, apparently. So we're gonna do that. All right. So the book is going to go to Dan Agramson. Where's Dan at? Dan. Yeah, there he is. There you go, Dan. All right. And, we were giving away coffee mugs to new members over the years, and Gigi in our office said, who wants another coffee mug? You want a nice, warm blanket when you live in Minnesota. And so, Elaine Belke, congratulations. The Wooddale blanket is all you. So, great to have you there. So, super practical teaching today. If before Lisa comes up and answers questions, here's what I want you to do. At your tables, would you just take like 3 minutes to share with each other something that you're going to take out of today's presentation, all right? So with the people that you're sitting with, just something that you're going to take out, a nugget that you're going to take from here and bring into your life, and then we'll bring Lisa back up. About 1 minute left, folks. 1 minute. All right, I'm going to bring Lisa back up, and I hope that you had some good discussion there. There's some nuggets that you're taking out of today, but I imagine there's some questions, and the answers may provide some more nuggets. So if you've got a question, your question is going to bless others, I promise you. And so, again, if you missed the beginning, I'm going to bring the microphone to you because we record this, and the people who are online want to hear what you're asking, all right? So if you've got a question, please let us come to you. But raise your hand if you've got something, and we'll start. Stephanie.
I have just a comment. Thank you, Lisa. Sure. But when you said saying, I'm sorry for your loss, I work in hospice and I work with a lot of grieving people, and I always felt like that was an empty phrase. I'm so sorry for your loss. And then when my mom died unexpectedly and people said, I'm sorry, it meant so much. It still chokes me up because I could tell their sentiment, even though the words seem kind of futile. They really, the meaning is there. And so even just saying, I'm so sorry, carries a lot. Yeah, and the other thing, as far as gifts go, when my mom died and later when my dad died, our friend sent us something from Spoonful of Comfort. And this is a company that was created just for this purpose. And they send jars of soup and homemade cookies and buns, and you can put them in the freezer. And
I
I
need
fed
to
my
know these
family.
people.
Yeah, so look it up.
Oh,
Spoonful
I
of
will.
Comfort.
That's wonderful.
It's
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. And that was Stephanie. Stephanie was our first speaker in September this month. If you missed Stephanie's presentation, go check it out. She talked about the work of aging. Did you have a question?
So I'm going to ask a question. I have nieces and a nephew that lost their dad 3 years ago suddenly. And my niece is getting married, and she didn't have the wedding dance because she didn't want to do the first dance without her dad. So you've made me think about what I can give her as a little gift that would represent her dad. But sometimes I feel uncomfortable because I'm like, okay, especially with my nephew, if I bring this up, am I going to make him sad by saying this at the time? And so that, I just have to ask you that. How do I react?
The worst you
and
do.
if I have been like 2 or 3 years with not saying much.
Right. No, don't do that. Talk about him as much as you can. Let me give you an idea for her. This is my favorite idea from a wedding we went to, and this is a family that we know, Brian and I know this family really well, and they had a 12-year-old son that died. When their daughter got married years later, and she was a young adult, she had a little N on a locket in her bouquet for her brother Noah. I could cry thinking about it. I'm telling you, of all the pictures, nothing put me over the top faster than the little N for Noah. And you know why I love that? Because it was close to her heart right when she held her flowers. And somebody made that for her. And so I love those kind of things. And to your earlier point, the biggest mistake you'll make is not mentioning their name. Because when you don't say anything, the griever assumes you've forgotten. The more times you say, I miss your uncle or your dad too, or I miss my brother, whatever relation he is to you, the more you tell them that you miss them, the more permission you give them to live in their pain, because they're living in it whether you care or not, and whether you mention it or not. And I have to say this, say their name. Say their name. You know, hey, we just watched the Vikings last week. We all know what he thought about the Vikings. It's okay, but bring it up, because when you bring it up, you validate that they lived. Yes.
Really good. Somebody else, question? Yes.
This isn't a question, but this friend that just lost her husband has lost a son and sister all in 5 years, and a sister-in-law. But anyway, what she has is a little silver, like a teardrop, and she has her son's ashes in that, and she wears that all the time. So that's kind of another.
Someone else? Yes.
So this might be more in the comment category, but there was someone whose niece had died, and I don't see her very much, and I went up to her, and there's something in my life I could overlap with her on, but I just started to enter the topic about her niece, and her response was, I wondered if you'd go there. And I just think that we need to be really keep our radar up, because grief is unique, you know, and so, you know, I fine-tuned where we went from that point. You know what I mean? Everyone handles it differently.
It's true, but she doesn't mind that you mentioned it, even if she didn't want to talk about it that day, because you basically said to her, I'm thinking about this. And even if she wasn't having the day for it or the hour for it and just couldn't go there, your acknowledging it meant something to her. More than she knows you were thinking of it, she knows it was on your heart, and that's valuable, very valuable.
Someone else? Yes, right up here.
I just wanted to comment on, I feel cautious about giving some gifts. I received one from a very good friend, picture of my son, but it had his birth and death dates on it. It had his birth and death dates on it, and that was very bothersome. I mean, I appreciated the sentiment, really appreciated, you know, the generosity, but I couldn't stand to look at it. So I just want to add a little tone of caution to some gifts.
Really good. Thank you. Thank you. Someone else? For those of you who couldn't hear, she just said that she had received a gift that had her son's birth and death date on it, and it was just really difficult to look at. It was a nice sentiment, but just hard. So, Ann.
Thanks, Lisa. Regarding the things not to say, my mother gave me a very good piece of advice. She said, when people were saying all those things to me, honey, most people mean well. And that helped me from not going over, not biting people's heads off because they said stupid things.
No, you're right. People do. They just need some confidence, though, to know that this is a season for you to stand in your pain, and they need to be okay with that.
Yeah.
But you're right.
Keep looking around. Any more questions? Yes.
Mine isn't really a question, but for the person who was wondering about something to do at the wedding for, I think was the niece who lost the girl whose dad wasn't going to be there. We had a very good friend who just had that happen. And a lot of the guy's friends, of the dad's friends, my husband being one of them, put a picture of him inside their suit jacket.
Oh, that's
And throughout the night, they danced with the daughter and opened it up and showed that Kyle was with them over their heart. And
That
it was
is precious.
really, really touching. And
Really
it was
sweet.
probably 30 guys that did it. So that was really, really sweet. And I knew
That's
it
neat.
meant a lot. And the other thing that they did is for the daughter dad dance, the bride said a little bit about her dad, but she invited all of the daughters and dads who were there to dance that dance.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And so
How
it wasn't,
generous.
and it was a fun song. It was
Yeah.
a fun song that her dad liked.
That's wonderful.
So it was really joyous, and then she just kind of jumped in with different dads. Dads would stop, and so just a couple of ideas.
No, Beth, thanks for sharing those. Those are really great ideas.
Really great. Tricia.
I wanted to say that silence is also wonderful.
Yes, it is.
Just the presence. When my dad
there.
died, I was very far away from home. Couldn't be there for the funeral. And a man came to our home, and he just played music. Didn't say a word. Just played music for a half an hour. It was very beautiful.
That was a lovely gift of
Beautiful.
his time. Beautiful gift.
Someone else. Okay. I'm not going to belabor it, but Lisa has generously agreed to stick around afterwards. If you've got some comments or questions, maybe I know this is a topic for many, again, that is just deep and close to your heart, and it's been recent, and it's hard sometimes to be able to ask in a group. And so Lisa, again, is here. She'd love to talk with you. We have pastors here as well. Pastor Dan is our care pastor over here, and he would be happy to talk with you. I'm happy to talk with you. Stacia is here as well. But yes.
When you're looking for a counselor or to refer a counselor, what are some words you can look for to verify they're a grief counselor or better with that type of scenario?
You know, they will sometimes say grief and loss on their page, but the thing I would say more than anything is get a referral from someone.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody can say anything on LinkedIn. Anybody can put any hashtags after their name, and they can make themselves sound like they have all kinds of experience. So I would say the person that I used as a grief counselor was referred to me by a family in this church who had had an extraordinary loss. And she called me and said, "You're not asking for this, but you're going to get this. You're going to get the name of my grief counselor, and I'm going to get you to say you're going." And boy, was that a good conversation,
Yeah.
because I went and went and went.
And so one of the services that we provide are referrals to counselors. We do have grief counselors, but all of you, if you've got referrals for us that you think would be a great grief counselor, that kind of thing, please stop it by our office as well. But that is something that we love to be able to walk alongside of you. And because we've got people like Lisa here and others who have walked this journey and who so generously share of their experiences, we rely on people like Lisa too for those kind of referrals. And we'd be happy to to share that information with you, okay? We're going to just invite you to come back next week. We've got a great speaker. Heather Fleece is going to be our speaker on October 5th. She's always a favorite. This place will be packed out next week, but I love the topic next week. And it's spiritual nurture, how to help your children fall in love with Jesus. And she's just got some great things that she's going to share. Edith Perlin will be here 2 weeks from today. If you've never met Edith, you are in for a treat. Edith is someone who leads a survivor-led ministry, is the best way to describe it. She knows what it's like to live as somebody who has been on the streets, somebody who went through horrific abuse. When you hear her story, I oftentimes say to those who are listening, would you have done any better if you had been through what she has been through? And yet she has taken some of the most horrific things and turned it into something beautiful. And she runs a ministry called Edith's House, and she's going to talk about how do you come alongside those who are experiencing homelessness. Todd Mulliken will be back with us in October. Todd is a marriage and family therapist talking about how to walk alongside a loved one with a mental health illness. And then on October 26th, we've got Finding Your Purpose with Allison Smith. Allison is, you're going to love her accent more than anything. She's somebody who comes from England and has been a member of Wooddale for years now, came to work for Caribou Coffee and their leadership, and she is somebody that loves to help people discover the gifts that God has given them and how to use those gifts to make an impact in this world. So she's going to be talking about finding your purpose, and as only Allison can do, how is your little light going to shine is her topic, her title. So if you know Allison, that's a perfect description of her. All right, have a great week. Thank you for coming. And again, we'll stick around.